Ever get that new gadget thrill? You know, when you crack open a user guide and you're like, yeah, maybe later.
It's a familiar feeling.
Well, today, we're your shortcut through the Canon R50 manual. We're going to extract the must-know WS to get you snapping like a pro in no time.
Think of it less like reading a dictionary and more like uncovering hidden treasure in your camera's features.
I love that. And I see our first treasure map is this quick start section. Honestly, Canon made this surprisingly painless, even for someone like me who usually wings it.
Yeah, they know a clunky start can kill the excitement. But tucked in there, there's a hidden gem about the battery. It operates best between 5 and 40 degrees Celsius.
Oh, okay. So that's more specific than I would have thought.
It might seem like a minor detail, but it's worth paying attention to.
So not just about, like, tossing it in a hot car or shooting in a blizzard, then.
Right. For everyday use, you're probably fine. But
Okay.
let's say you're on a week-long trek through the desert trying to capture the perfect sunset, right?
Yeah.
Those extreme temperatures, they can impact your battery's life and even its lifespan. Imagine missing that epic shot because your battery died.
Okay, point taken. It's not just about avoiding a mid-shoot meltdown. It's about making sure that battery lasts through the entire adventure.
Exactly. And that brings us to the next level. Moving beyond auto mode and into the world of scene modes.
Okay, confession time. I usually live in auto mode. But the R50 scene modes, with options like self-portrait, food, panoramic, it's tempting to break free.
They're more than just, fancy presets. Each one is tailored to a specific type of scene, adjusting settings like aperture and shutter speed to get the best possible results. What kind of photography are you most drawn to?
I'm a sucker for a stunning cityscape, especially at night with all the lights.
And the R50 has you covered with its handheld night scene mode. It doesn't just bump up the ISO and hope for the best. Instead, it takes multiple exposures, combining them to create a final image that's both sharp and vibrant, even in low light.
So it's like the camera understands the challenges of a night scene and compensates for them automatically. That's seriously cool.
Exactly. It takes the guesswork out, and it lets you focus on composing your shot. And speaking of adding a creative touch, the guide dives into some really interesting creative filters.
Yes. This section had me ready to play. Miniature effect, HDR, art bold, that classic grainy B&W. It's like having a whole editing suite in my camera.
They're definitely fun to experiment with. The miniature effect, for example, it blurs the top and bottom of the image, creating that tilt-shift look that makes everything look tiny and toy-like. Imagine applying that to your cityscape shot.
Now that you mention it, I've seen photos with that effect and always wondered how they did it. I just assumed it required, fancy editing software.
The R50, it lets you achieve that effect in camera. No editing needed. But the guide also points out a few things to keep in mind. Some filters, they might limit the image size you can shoot in, and you might notice some graininess, especially in low light.
Okay, so it's like seasoning, A little goes a long way, and you don't want to overdo it.
Exactly. Each filter has its strengths and limitations, and the guide, it gives you the knowledge to use them effectively. Now, you're capturing these incredible images, but what about sharing them with the world? The guide covers both Wi-Fi and Bluetooth connectivity.
Which seems pretty straightforward, but I admit I skimmed over that part. I'm more of a share later kind of person.
I hear you, but even if you're not, posting on the fly, there's one feature that caught my eye, especially given your love of cityscapes: geotagging.
Geotagging. Okay, I'll bite. What's the deep dive on that? So geotagging, huh? I'm picturing tiny GPS trackers attached to my photos, just raining down location data.
Not quite. It's almost as cool though. Geotagging, basically, it embeds the location data right into your photos. So when you look back at that stunning cityscape, years from now, you'll know exactly where you were when you took it.
Oh, so it's like a built-in photo journal. With coordinates and everything.
Yeah.
I can see the appeal for travel photography for sure.
Exactly. You could even use it to try to recreate a shot later or see how the light changes in a particular spot throughout the day. Now, remember how we talked about the guide being a treasure map? There are even more layers to uncover. Custom functions, advanced settings, things like lens correction.
Okay, lens correction. That sounds like something I should probably understand, right?
It's a whole other rabbit hole worth exploring.
Maybe another deep dive.
Exactly. But for today, let's wrap up with a final gem from the guide. We've talked about, protecting your camera from physical damage, but the guide also, it emphasizes how intense light can impact, your photos themselves.
Oh, interesting. So we're talking beyond just avoiding lens flare, because I've learned my lesson there.
More than that, it's about understanding how the camera's sensor, how it reacts to that intense light. Remember that HDR art bold filter we talked about?
Yeah.
Knowing how different light intensities affect your image overexposure, color shifts will let you use that filter, more strategically.
So knowing my enemy, in this case, light, helps me become a better photographic artist.
Precisely. By understanding how light interacts with your camera, you can use those creative tools even more effectively. You can really capture the mood and style you want.
This has been a serious crash course. I went from maybe I'll skim the manual later to I need to go try all these things like right now.
That's what we love to hear.
Yeah.
This deep dive was just a taste of what the R50 can do. Now it's your turn to, experiment, play with those settings and see what you can create.
To all our listeners, go grab your camera, dust off that manual, and don't be afraid to get creative. Until next time, happy snapping.